It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the national Canadian softball player, Danielle Lawrie. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to play professional softball?
Honestly, like the opportunity kind of presented itself when I graduated, right? Like I was playing at UW, graduated in 2010. And I didn't get drafted out of college. I don't know why. I think I opted out just because I had national team stuff all the time. And I remember my agent at the time was talking about all the big wigs that are playing, like Jenny Finch, Natasha Watley, Jessica Mendoza. And I remember him saying how important it would be to just continue to keep playing, especially with women like that. And that's when I think I was in communication with USSSA Pride, or my agent was, and then all of a sudden it kind of worked out where I landed with the Pride and I played 4 full seasons with them. And I'm really happy that I chose to do it.
Can you talk about, of course, your collegiate career at Washington Huskies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was really lucky to be in that position to play at Washington. I mean, the first Canadian to ever get the chance to play there for softball. I was Coach Tarr's first ever recruit, which I think is really, really special. The big, the reason why I wanted to go there was I just couldn't imagine myself being really far away from like all my family. And back in the day, like nothing was on TV to the magnitude that it is now, where as a parent, you can send your kid to Alabama or South Carolina, and all those games are going to be on SEC Network and on TV. So your parents are going to be able to watch. But for me, I knew if I made that decision to, go to Alabama or Nebraska, which were my other 2 schools, that I never would see my family in the stand. So for me, it was like I wanted to stay close. I wanted to be at a top 10 program. And I'm really stoked that Coach Tarr took, a leap of faith for this little Canadian across the border. And here I am.
What were some of your accomplishments during college?
Wow. Well, besides being a part of that first ever national championship team, that was, making history for your university and for Washington State. And it just was a really special thing to be a part of, right? Like winning a national championship, especially coming fresh off of that Olympic year in 2008 with Team Canada. I'm definitely not someone to bloat like personal accolades. Now that I'm like officially done in the game, I feel like I can talk about like different things that happened. But I remember winning the back-to-back player of the year. And I think why that was so special for me was because I was Canadian, and this is the USA, softball player of the year. And to be able to like showcase the fact that a Canadian can come across the border and just open up those floodgates to other Canadian women, knowing that something like that is possible, was incredible. I remember being a part of, winning that Honda Award. So I won back-to-back Honda Awards. I mean, you take all the accolades out, you think of like really certain situations in games. Like I think about that UMass 15 inning game as not getting anything for it, but just moving forward in that tournament. But the memories and growth and stuff that we had to go through, and what I had to go through for pitching 15 innings straight and 400 plus pitches on the day, like just dealing with the emotions of that. I think about playing Oklahoma my senior year for a super regional, Keilani Ricketts, a freshman, and them coming to us and beating us game 1. And I remember Amber Flores, who we ended up being teammates, but she had 3 home runs off me in one game, left field, center field, right field. And like, just like the emotions of all of that, losing game 1. And then I had to come back as a pitcher and throw back-to-back games against Oklahoma, and we shut them out. And I just remember that mental adversity that you have to face as an athlete sometimes, especially being 18, 19, 20, is very challenging. So, some of the personal accolades are fun, but I just think of those games where you got to grit your teeth and you got to just bow down and get after it. And those two, besides obviously the national championship game and that run, those two, the UMass and the Oklahoma game, really stand out.
What was it like coming back to Washington when your jersey was retired?
Made me feel old. It was special. There was no other ones up on the wall. And to be able to have, a little tiny Maddie, I think Maddie was maybe 8 months old, with me, and my husband was there and my family was there. And I remember the day vividly because it was like torrential downpour. And we had a little banquet before that. So I had a bunch of people come up from or down from Canada, and we all just kind of like celebrated that moment. And it just felt really special, right? Like, you don't play the game for that stuff to happen. Like, that's not the reason I started playing when I was 8 years old. It wasn't to get a jersey retired or this or that. You purely play because you love it. And when you have that daily obsession with wanting to be great at your sport and you put that work in, at times you're hopeful that things like that will happen. And I'm just so damn lucky that I learned at a young age to put in that work to try to be great, because this is a tough sport. It's a lot of failure, a lot of ups and downs mentally that you have to deal with. So to see my jersey on the wall now, I appreciate it more because I have 2 little girls. So every time we go to games and I'm broadcasting and like they see that jersey out there, I think to them it's like, oh, that's my mom's jersey. So I think that that's like the most special thing in the world.
That's pretty amazing. What was it like going from college to professional softball with Triple S
Yeah.
pride?
It was very challenging. It is a huge transition that I don't think a lot of people really understand. Like, going from college where you're being told what to do at all times, you have your days planned for you, like people are there to constantly help you be successful, you're being coached, and then you go to the professional level and it's like you have to hold yourself to the higher standard because nobody else is, right? So it's like, that was the hardest part for me. Not only are you playing literally the best athletes in the United States and most likely the world, you're being challenged every single day against these hitters. Like, you have to train and you have to put yourself in the best position to be successful out there because no one's holding you to that higher standard but yourself. So it's just that tough transition. And it's like going from being almost unhittable at times in college to going into that pro league where like I'm getting beat up. And it's like, how am I coming to terms with dealing with that, right? Like, no one wants to lose and give up a 6 spot in the 4th inning, but there were sometimes where I would struggle and I'd be like, damn, did I sign up to do the right thing here? The older you get, you learn a little bit more, like the ebbs and flows of when you're doing bad, how to deal with it. But it hit me hard in the face that first season because the talent pool was just, there was a lot of amazing athletes.
What was your time like playing with Canadian Wild?
The Canadian Wild was a lot of fun. It was very interesting going back to play in like the MPF because I had been out for so long, right? Like, I retired in 2014 was my last year. And so in my mind, when I retired and hung them up, it meant that I wasn't going to be playing anymore, but not playing in the MPF anymore, right? So it's like when I made that decision to go back and I heard that we're going to be playing in the MPF and it's going to be with the Canadian Wild, like I just instantly remembered the hard days of what it's like to play in that league because the talent pool is so heavy. We played at this independent baseball stadium, which was just absolutely stunning. Like, it was all turf. We had these big old locker rooms. And so that was really amazing. I think the hard part for me sometimes is to compartmentalize living in these like really, 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 really small towns. And I've always been so used to, I'm a homebody, but like Seattle's 25 minutes. I have access to like everything. Everything's so close. And when I was living in Marion, Illinois, we were living in dorms. It was almost like I was just this like freshman kiddo again, like going through all that. So that was a little bit of like a hard transition for me, especially going back this year training for the Olympics. Like we lived in Marion, Illinois for 6 weeks with COVID where we couldn't do anything. And my best parts of the day were going to the field. And that's saying something, right? Because sometimes you're tired and when you go to practice, it's like, dang, it's a grind. But Marion, Illinois was a struggle at times because it's just the pandemic had hit everyone so hard. The best part for me when we played this year was like getting to, normally I'm an ESPN commentator and I'm doing all the broadcasting. And for the first time in a really long time, like I got to watch it as a spectator and not somebody that's actually calling the games and is involved. So for me, like I lived and died watching those games. It was the coolest thing because I got to hear all my friends commentate. I got to learn more about the game sitting with my Team Canada teammates where we're just talking the game and things that are happening. And so I felt like those were some of my fondest memories when we were just playing with the Canadian Wild in Marion, Illinois.
What was it like putting on the Pride and the Wild jersey for the first time?
It's definitely kind of one of those moments where you just feel like, oh wow, what an opportunity. It's very much different playing for your country and playing for your university because you're playing for something that's so big, right? Like I'm playing for all the women that have come before me in this UW uniform, and I'm playing for my university, and I'm playing for my state. And the same thing with Canada, obviously, no explanation needed. You're playing for your country. So it was just trying to like come to terms with it. It's like one of those like pro baseball type deals. Like sometimes they don't even know where they're going to play. They just play hard for, they're going to go play AA here or AAA here. So it was special getting to be a part of it. I will say that at times, like the MPF was just such a challenge for me mentally, more so than I ever thought it was, that it just made me realize, especially this past year and finishing up at the Olympics, like how happy I am to close that chapter with playing, because I had put like, blood, sweat, and tears into this game since I was really little. But this year was really cool. Like getting to put on, they made these Canadian Wild uniforms for us, and knowing that it's your last is a very cool feeling too, right? It's like I knew it's the last time I'm ever going to play with a professional team. So it was just special to put that uniform on and go to, go to the field and prepare and put our team in the best position to prepare for an Olympic Games. And that's ultimately what we utilize that league for. It's like we have to train to get better so we can go to the Olympics as best prepared that we possibly can. And this MPF season, I think definitely with the Canadian Wild helped us do that.
What was it like in 2008 going to the Olympics?
I wish that I have the mentality that I have now going back. It was 13 years ago, and it was very eye-opening. I think going to an Olympic Games at 21 is just, number one, so special, but I think you take things for granted at that age a little bit. And it was by far one of the coolest experiences of my life. I just wish that I took time to enjoy the moments more than I did. But I will say this, like finishing this Olympic Games now a couple weeks ago, it just made me very fortunate to have gotten to experience it all in 2008. So when I say that, it's like fans in the stands, it's going to, an Olympic Village and seeing people around with no masks on, and it's normal, and getting to go to the dining hall and sit around and talk with people. Like this Olympics was very different because it was just, you had to be so safe with the pandemic. So it made me appreciate that 2008 so much more than I thought I would, because I got all of that. I got to stay in the Village. I got to walk in opening ceremonies. I got to go to closing ceremonies. I got to watch my brother play. Like all of those things, none of us got the opportunity to do this time around, just because the magnitude of, what's going on in the world made it where we weren't able to walk in the opening ceremonies and stay in the village, and we had to leave 24 hours after we won our Olympic medal, and just so many different things. But I wouldn't change it for a thing. It just made me appreciate both uniquely, in their own way.
Of course, preparing for this previous Olympics, did you know beforehand that you were going to retire?
You're talking about retiring after these Olympic Games?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I knew. Like, I didn't think that we were going to be throwing an additional 365 days of training with the pandemic in there. That threw me for a loop. But I mean, obviously softball's out for 2024, and we know that. So I think for me, it just made me realize that my days are numbered in the game, and that's okay. Like, I have a lot to offer the game, but it doesn't mean that I have to be on the field doing it anymore. So as sad as that moment in time is, where you know that you're like hanging them up and you're not going to play anymore, I felt lucky to have ended on the note that I did, and how much that I've given to the game and how much the game has given me. I was fully in a place to retire, and I'm okay with it. Like, the work that goes into it behind the scenes is the stuff that no one really knows about, that makes this so challenging and also so rewarding at the same time. So I'm just not willing to want to put in that work anymore, if I'm being honest, because I have so many other things that I deserve to be loving on, like my kids and my family, and working hard for my job. And at times I was putting softball first over the course of the last couple of years, because I wanted to help the team win so bad that it meant that, like, I'd have to do more than most, because I got to put myself in the best position to, if my name's called, that I'm able to step up for the team. And it was just an obsession with training. It was a lot.
What was your game day routine and rituals like?
It has changed over the course of the last couple of years. I used to get wicked nervous and like do the same thing and drink the same drink and put one sock on, and that's not the case anymore. Honestly, when I think about these Olympic Games that I just played in, like, I didn't really have a routine leading up to them. Like, I think the best thing for me was, like, I have my good music that I like to listen to. I shut off all social media but TikTok, because TikTok for me, like, we'd go on these almost 50-minute bus rides to the field. And that's where you start to get nervous, right? You're just sitting in the bus, you're going to the field. And I would just be sitting on the bus and like going through TikTok and laugh, like not laughing like really loud, because everyone has their own dynamic, how they want to sit and feel and listen. Like, they don't want to hear me laughing, but it almost kind of just calmed my nerves a little bit, getting good chuckles on the bus. But it also made me realize that I feel extremely confident in my preparation, that I have nothing to be nervous about. I think you get nervous because you want to win, but not nervous in the sense where I'm doubting what I'm doing. And it made me just realize that, like, getting a good laugh in, putting good music on.
Of course, looking back on your career, who are some people that you looked up to?
I wish that I had more females in sport to look up to when I first started. Like, for me, like, my two big time people that I looked up to were Michael Jordan and Derek Jeter. I vividly remember like watching Derek Jeter and just like being fully in love with everything he brought to the table, like a competitor, like played so hard until the end. Michael Jordan is the best of the best. Like, it was iconic getting to watch him in the pandemic this year when they came out with the Last Dance documentary on Netflix or on TV. Like, my husband and I would tape these things with Michael Jordan, and I would just sit and watch, and it would bring me back to like the days of watching him on TV with my dad and like talking about him. So honestly, I would definitely say like Derek Jeter and Michael Jordan, right from when I was really young. But now it's like, now having two little girls, it's like I want them to be able to look up to strong women role models. And the more that I've been in sport over the last couple of years, like, I've been like really doing everything I can to read different books that, amazing women put out, like Carly Lloyd, Megan Rapinoe, like Lolo Jones, Team USA Soccer. Like, I just love hearing their story and what makes them strong and what makes them amazing, and put in that work. And so that's what I'm hoping that my kids will be able to do, is to look up to either what I've done, or my teammates or other women that are successful in sport and thrive knowing that if they can do it, I can do it.
What are some of your future plans as you hang up your cleats for the last time?
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I definitely will be someone that probably coaches my kids with whatever it is that is, whether it's basketball, softball, uh, soccer. So to be involved with that, but honestly, I really want to see where like this broadcasting goes. Like I've been doing, training for the last 4 years to be doing this Olympic thing. And it's kind of taken away a little bit from my job because I've had to put training first and I've had to miss weekends at times to broadcast because I needed to be with the team and things like that. So I'm just really excited to see where the next, year and a bit goes starting on Friday. Like I'll leave to go commentate and do the AAU Athletes Unlimited. And I'm just excited to dive headfirst into that, knowing that I don't need to train anymore to be on the field. It's almost a rewarding feeling knowing that like I can close that chapter and solely focus on my family and my work.
Of course, as you prepare for this Friday, playing for the commentating for the Athletes Unlimited, what are some of the things that you look forward to once you get back onto the softball field, but on the other side of instead of pitching,
Yeah,
commentating?
it's just so much fun to see women ball out, right? Like Athletes Unlimited last year was so amazing because they were able to put this game on TV, which we all know the college season was taken away. So there was no champion crown last year for college softball. And we just know how many people tune in to watch, right? So getting to be a part of it last year and see all those women make the sacrifices they did to make this happen. Like they literally couldn't do anything with the pandemic. They were from point A to point B. They couldn't ride with this person. They had to stay with their original roommate. And it was just very, very strict. But everyone followed the guidelines because they just wanted to play so bad and they knew how amazing this league was and what it was going to be. So for me, it was like I really got to not only did it spark my interest to want to go back to train because I went through these mental moments as well where like I was struggling how I was going to continue to keep doing this an additional year with the Olympics being so far away. So when I was up there getting to watch like some of these athletes perform and watch Savannah Jakewish like lead the league in home runs and hit 2-3 home runs in a home in a game, and watch Kat Osterman still dominate at her age, and watching some of my Canadian teammates play, like it just really made me realize how much fun I have, how many different emotions I have behind the mic. Like I almost like feel exactly what they're feeling, and you can tell sometimes when I'm calling games and it's a big moment for the pitcher where there's a lot of pressure where I feel that, and I'm like, I know exactly like what she's going through out there because I've lived it. And it's almost like I can explain the emotion to the viewer without being the one that's in that moment. But having experienced it before just allows a viewer to be like, wow, that's what Kat's going through in that moment, or that's what this hitter's going through on a 9-pitch at bat with the game on the line. And just a lot of like those moments are fun for me to replay the, things that I've gone through to help broadcast what that is to all the viewers.
Of course, how has your playing experience going to help you with, of course, commentating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's everything, right? Like I think that's the most important like piece to being like an analyst. Like if you haven't lived in those experiences, it's very hard to bring that insight to what people want to hear. And at the end of the day, like what I always find my goal is when I'm behind the mic is like I want to be able to explain what's going on to the viewer, but almost make it a comfortable, fun conversation like I'm sitting on the couch with my buddy. And I just want them to know like, okay, what's she going through? Why is she going through that? What are the emotions of it? And I think being able to like express that through experiences is really fun. Um, honestly, like I've been so nervous this last week because I know I'm leaving on Friday, and I'm almost like, am I prepared enough? Have I done everything I need to do? And it's like, I know all of these 60 women that are in the league. I've played with a good chunk of them. I've played against a lot of them. And it's like I still get those like giddy butterfly like nerves, because it's just, you want to put on a good show for everyone, because you know how many people tune in and how special this game is. So it's like I just always want to continue to keep allowing everyone to see how great the game is. And I just take a big responsibility in trying to do it in the best possible way. I can be extremely blunt and very honest at times, and I know sometimes it seems like I come across hard, more so on pictures. Like I'll get messages from people all the time, they're like, you're so hard on the pictures, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm hard on the pictures because I've lived it and I've done it and I know what it takes to be successful at all these different levels, and it's not easy. So I'm hard on them because I expect more, and I know pitchers expect more, and we deal with so much pressure already in our position, that in order to thrive in those moments, it's like you need to know you've done everything you can to be successful. And it just takes a huge work ethic to deal with the wins and the losses. And I just like to try to tell that story.
What are some of the dream matches that you plan on achieving?
Some of the what?
What are some of the dream games that you plan on commentating on?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, the pivotal in this sport is being able to be behind the mic at the Women's College World Series, like up in the booth. But I will say this. I absolutely love, like I do the studio stuff with one of my good friends, Kayla Bro, and it is the most fun that I've had in a really, really long time. Like there's something about calling a game and being able to just like the ebbs and flows of the game and tell your stories throughout. But what I love and the beauty about the studio stuff is that like I love watching it for like the NBA finals, and you see Shaq and all of those guys like messing around in the studio. And so I always try to bring that like kind of fun competitive edge, and like Kayla and I will roll off each other and kind of be hard on each other with our different opinions and stuff. And I just love that you get like 30 minutes straight of that camera time where you're talking the game. And on TV, like when you're calling the actual game in front of you, sometimes it's a little bit different. I love the studio stuff, and I would obviously be so humbled to continue to keep doing it. But like in a perfect world down the road sometime, if I ever got to be one of the ones that was up there with, Jess Mendoza calling a game, she watched and was a part of our broadcast team for the 2009 national championship game that we won. So I mean, to be behind the mic with Jess one time, I think would be a very iconic moment for me. Not only my love and respect for her as an athlete, a broadcaster in the sport, and as a mom and friend, like it would just be a 360 moment to know like that we're both in that position to be up there calling it together, having fun. And so that would be ideal to be able to call a Women's College World Series game, I think, with Jess.
What advice would you give college softball players looking to play and go into professional softball?
I would say it definitely requires thick skin. You're not going to get babied. No one's going to tell you what to do. It takes you to be able to tap into what makes you choose this game, because there's going to be those moments in time where you're like, I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to do this. But why did you pick up that ball when you were 4 or 5 or 6 or 7? Like, why did you choose to do that? And you have to remember that in order to be successful in whatever it is you want to do in life, you don't just pick it up and you're great at it. It requires a lot of work. Even in your mid-20s, even in your 30s, it's taken more work at my age to be successful, because I just don't have as much time as everyone else. I have kids, a family, a job. So it's like really having to fine tune my why and like what makes me great. Okay, this is what makes me great. So I have to put in the work in those areas in order to thrive and be successful. So it's just having to sacrifice more time, and no one's giving you video to watch. No one's giving you any of these things. You have to put in all that work by yourself. So I think it's finding a good teammate that can help get you through it, but also be willing to work harder than you ever have, because the talent really is just very, very strong.
What advice would you give professional softball players and players looking to play in the Olympics for the first time, or even if it's more than once?
Yeah. You truly have to enjoy the process to get there. And I can say that I did that this time around. I feel like you have to be able to have women on your team that you can be extremely transparent with and vulnerable. Like there was a lot of hard times this year, 70 plus days away from my family and my friends and my kids. But if it wasn't for the women on the team to be able to like talk me off the ledge and tell me we're good, you're going to get through it. Like there's no way that I would have been able to. You have to be willing to work with no reward. That's the hardest thing. Nowadays, I feel like a lot of children are playing sports because of the accolades that can be given, a scholarship, or you're going to get this, or you're guaranteed to get this if you work hard. But as soon as you come to the realization that the hard work doesn't always equal the reward, that's when you know that you're doing it purely because you want to be great at sport. I didn't just do all the work to get a scholarship. I started to realize I was pretty good in the game, and that the game was rewarding me back and showing and showcasing that I can play in college. But you have to be willing to work harder than anyone else. And there's dark days, more darker days than lighter days. You struggle and you fail more than you do well. But how do you handle that failure? Like, what are you learning about yourself? Are you having the right people in your corner? Are you putting yourself in a position to do the mental performance work? Are you dialing in your fitness? Are you dialing in like the people in your corner that can help you? And like I said, it's just, you have to put yourself in a position to do more than most, to be okay with the outcome at the end of it. And that's not always easy. That's for sure.
What advice would you give players that are playing professional, that are looking to retire, and that are retiring just like you did?
I would definitely say like kind of having an idea of what you want to do when you're retired, right? Like I know a lot of Olympians go through these moments of like, you go to the Olympics and then all of a sudden you go home and you're done. And then it's like, now what? Like, oh, I don't have a job. I don't have this. I don't have that. But I have felt so lucky to at least know, like when I got to come back and I was going through like just the sadness of it all being done, that like I still had my kids and I had my job and I had my husband and I had that support to kind of help get me through it. And it doesn't mean you have to be married, but it means you have to have people in your corner that can kind of help you when you go through those moments of when you're officially retiring from the game. And I think honestly, like using the tools that you learn in the game to help continue to better your life and create those paths for whatever that is. So it's, a job opportunity, you're going in for a job interview. The skills that you've learned in this game are things that help get you through that meeting of where, your heart's pounding and you feel so nervous and you don't know if you're going to be able to like speak and get the job. But it's like, okay, you've been in some of the biggest pressure situations in your entire life with the whole world's eyes on you. And how'd you get through that? Okay, if you can get through that, the skills you learn to deal with it, those are things you can use in an interview when you're going to go talk to someone that's going to either hire you or they're not. So I've just really been a big fan of making sure that the things that I learn in this game impact me on a day-to-day basis and have honestly turned me into the woman that I am because of those experiences.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
So on Instagram, just Danielle Lawrie 15. I've been really big into my TikTok game lately, Brandon. So they can find me on there at Danielle Lawrie 1515. Been posting a lot about striking out the boys, as well as on Twitter, just Danielle Lawrie 5.
Thank you again, Danielle Lawrie, for your interview, and best of luck in your future wherever your career may hold you.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Danielle, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.